Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. Today's episode is all about what I learned in 6 weeks off social media. Now, basically the whole first trimester of my pregnancy was a little rough. I was tired. I was nauseous. The fatigue was outrageous, to be very honest with you. And so in a very, very quick transition, I realized that I couldn't be on social media as much. And so my team and I created a plan, and we decided they would primarily post on social media for me, and it allowed me to really get off of it for the most part for 6 straight weeks. And we learned a lot during that period of time, and I wanted to share that with you all. So that is what we're talking about in today's episode. Alrighty, let's get to it, Legal Pagers. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hey everyone, like I said, I am going to be talking all about what I learned in 6 whole weeks off of social media. And I want to just give you the backstory to begin with. So I got pregnant in January 2021, near the end of January. And so I didn't find out I was pregnant until mid-February. And it was actually right around Valentine's Day weekend. And during that period of time, I was fine, like no real feelings of being pregnant, none of that. I honestly, continued to hang out with friends and drink a glass of wine here and there. So I was pretty surprised, even though it was a planned pregnancy. We were, trying to potentially start a family, but I just had all these signs that pointed to not being pregnant. And lo and behold, I was. So by the end of February, I really realized my body was starting to react to the hormones and the pregnancy as a whole. I really started getting extreme fatigue, and this would happen basically all day. And I would be exhausted. I couldn't really function to my normal capacity, which I'm an Enneagram 3. I'm also, type A personality. It was very, very hard for me to not work at 150%. And so that was kind of a very big mental drain for me as well. It was not only physical fatigue, but mental fatigue, coupled with the fact that I couldn't work to the best of my ability. And then the mornings were a little bit rough. I am very, very grateful and thankful and blessed that I did not have severe nausea like many women do. I hear you out there. I've had a little bit of nausea, but I actually have not had any vomiting situations at all during my pregnancy. So that's good. I'm knocking on wood right now because I'm about halfway through, just over halfway through. And it could happen the 3rd trimester, so I've heard. So I'll get back to you guys on that one. But for the most part, I just had nausea when I woke up in the morning. I just felt like my equilibrium was off that 1st trimester. And my husband was oh so kind and really realized, okay, I need to feed Paige immediately in the morning. I'm not a huge gluten person. I'm not gluten intolerant like celiac or anything like that, but gluten just doesn't agree with me. So I don't eat a lot of bread or toast or anything like that, but Marco realized I needed a solid piece of gluten-free toast with like peanut butter or something heavy like butter and jam on it right away, like immediately when I woke up. And so it was just a big transition that I would say once I was about 6, 7, 8 weeks pregnant, I just could not do what I was, used to doing every single day. I used to wake up, have a cup of coffee, not eat for an hour or two. Like I just really didn't have a routine, and I could work all day and then work on projects all night and then watch some TV shows or go golfing or something and then come home and relax and not go to sleep till like 11 or 12 at night. But that all changed when I got pregnant. And with that came a lot of stress surrounding me having to be present on social media. The reason I'm telling you guys kind of where I was at about 6 weeks of pregnancy was I just like wasn't myself. I didn't have the drive and the energy to get on social media like I used to be, which was storying all the time, being ever so present on social media, answering people's DMs myself. And so my team really realized this. We quickly realized, I would say, in about 4 to 5 days, like, okay, this is odd. Paige isn't online. We all need to make a game plan. And luckily, I had just hired my second full-time employee at the beginning of February, which was very, very helpful. And then I had my social media team, Anna, who's like my copywriter and social media kind of content manager. And then Morgan really is kind of a jack of all trades with TLP. And Morgan helps with all of the stuff that odds and ends that we need done in the business. And so Morgan really stepped up to the plate with Anna. And they kind of double teamed taking over social media for me. And they realized, okay, let's like get a bunch of content out there for TLP. Luckily, we always batch record podcasts. We always batch produce blogs. And at that point, we were still heavily doing YouTube videos. So we had already batch recorded all of those YouTube videos, and they were in the editing process and, going out weekly or bi-weekly. So we have 3 big content pieces basically going out every week during that time. I used to get on social media and really talk about the various, pieces of content that we were producing for everyone and, have my own little take on things, but we just couldn't do that. So Morgan stepped up to the plate and decided to kind of take over Instagram stories for me. And it was so helpful, because I didn't have to like really show my face or feel like I had to get ready. And I could just be in that moment of pregnancy, my first trimester, and deal with it. So the point at which I knew I needed to just be off social media as a whole was twofold. It was what I told you guys where, I was 7 weeks pregnant. My body was doing things that I wasn't used to, which I should have known was coming. I, wasn't really prepared for that amount of fatigue. And then there was one other thing that I really wanted to mention here, because I haven't actually really shared this publicly, and I'm much better about it now. It doesn't bug me, but I think it needs to be said. And so, this is my podcast. I can say what I want, but I also want to be very, very cautious and respectful, because I've had tons of friends who have gone through miscarriages and just not great first trimesters. And then I really realized that, once you start talking about pregnancy, all of your social media apps are picking up on that when you're looking at baby stuff. I feel like Alexa on, the Amazon Echo, I think. Those throughout the house, I feel like were listening. My phone was listening. And so a lot of pregnancy stuff started popping up on my feed. And with like my fatigue and a little bit of nausea, and also just the scary like thoughts you're having in your head when you're first pregnant, all of that coupled with what social media was projecting onto me was a lot. And I had a lot of conversations with some good friends and family members and my mom and dad and Marco. And I really was like, it's not mentally healthy for me to be on social media right now. There was a lot of noise out there with what happens in that first trimester or could happen. And it scared me. I'm not going to lie. I was very, 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 very terrified of a miscarriage. And I think it was just accounts I follow and what Instagram was kind of like pushing onto me. I have lots of friends in the industry who have gone through, very, very traumatic miscarriage situations. I've had close friends go through it. And I was just like, well, what if that happens to me? And I need to be prepared for that. And I'm not sure that this pregnancy is obviously viable yet until about, 12 weeks is what they say. I wasn't even really ready until 12 to 14 weeks. And I told my team this, and I said, already mentally in my head that something could happen. And I just like really need to protect my emotional energy right now at this time, coupled with the fatigue and a little bit of nausea, of course. But I just told them like, I can't do this. I need to take Instagram and Facebook and TikTok off my phone because I just can't. I can't put myself through that. I don't want to scroll. And of course, I'm tired and I'm in bed and I'm on the couch. And so what do? You just scroll mindlessly. And it was all just getting to me. So that is another point at which I realized I just have to make this like hard and fast, black and white decision to like get off of social media as a whole. And my team totally respected that. Anna in particular, she's, like I said, my copywriter and social media manager. She has already had a little boy, and she is pregnant with her second right now, actually due in July 2021. I'm so excited for her. We're pregnant at the same time. It's been fun to go through this. But because she was in that similar stage of obviously being pregnant and having kids and being a mother of young children, she totally got it. And it was nice to not have to like explain it to anyone. She just said, okay, Paige, we've got this. Don't worry. Morgan has 2 kids as well. We have just a really awesome team of moms, to be very honest with you. A couple of us are like just starting our families, but everyone is very, very much, this is a women-led TLP team. We all help each other and pick each other up. And the main part of TLP, the page of TLP, was kind of out of commission. And so everyone rallied together. And I just told Anna, like, I really can't do this. Like, I can't even be on social media. I don't even want to check what you guys are posting, to be very frank with you. And she was like, don't worry, we got this. So her and Morgan stepped up to the plate, and they used, obviously, Canva. You guys, if you haven't heard of Canva, it's a phenomenal online platform where you can make graphics and GIFs and all kinds of different things on there, animated stories, animated videos. And Morgan was very much a pro at Canva. And so she was able to use Canva and really start creating like solid templates that we could use for every podcast launch, for every blog launch, for every YouTube launch. She made sure like Mondays looked like I was saying hello to everyone with just a static photo of me. I mean, we have a bank of photos of me. We have a Dropbox folder that probably has 1,000, 2,000, maybe 3,000 photos of just me in it. And so she utilized those and just, she would type, write things out. And she just made it sound like I was on social media. And then she tag teamed with Anna with DMs. And the rest of my team really stepped up to the plate, and they kind of shifted people's DMs where I would just answer usually point blank in DMs. But we made sure that it was still, we were answering as quickly as possible to people who would message us in DMs. And then we would maybe either answer them or direct them elsewhere, whether that was to our support inbox or our shop inbox. And so the back end of TLP was really starting to get a good workflow and system in place because I just wasn't, 100% in the business at the time. I did have some fears, though, of not being on social media. I was pretty worried because I created a business where I was the face of my brand, and that my business may not grow if I am not present on it 24/7. And I was worried, TLP and being visible may not be in the forefront of people's minds anymore. And I would say that is a fear you do not need to be worried about when you're on social media. As long as you're producing something, you can totally take a step back. And if you batch the crap out of all your content going out, I can tell you, you definitely can take a step back from social media. While those were my initial fears and concerns, that didn't happen. We did not see a massive drop in engagement. Our analytics stayed very consistent. Like I said, we run a decently large small business, I would say. I mean, for many people who are just solopreneurs, it's going to look totally different for you to take like 6 weeks off of social media than it would for me. I am just very, very thankful that the time at which I needed to take off 6 weeks of social media, I had built a good support system on the back end of TLP to be able to cover me in that situation. So, that fear of the brand not growing, us not having good sales from our digital shop, that people weren't going to be asking questions, that people were going to notice I was gone. Nobody did. It was all in my head. So with 6 weeks of the girls taking over and still just like posting something, Anna also posts actual Instagram posts every day for the most part. We had reels that were batch recorded, and she like took some from the vault as well and just like repurposed them. Everything was running pretty smoothly for the most part while I was gone. And so what actually ended up happening in those months is the TLP account, I'm talking about Instagram primarily, was still growing. We do have a TLP Facebook page, but that's just pretty much a base page where we post, here's a podcast, here's a blog, here's a YouTube video. We post about sales. We don't really do a whole lot with the Facebook page, but we were also maintaining kind of steady engagement in our Facebook group as well. And my legal team really stepped up. And then Casey, who is kind of our operations manager with TLP, she really stepped up and started, answering questions and getting SOPs all squared away for our Facebook group. And everyone got logins like they were me. And they, at that point, like really, really were trying to answer people's questions as quickly as possible. Because in February, we were still dealing with quite a bit of, COVID stuff that was happening, reopenings throughout the US and the world. The wedding industry was really starting to get back into business at that time. And so we had lots of questions in our very, very active Facebook group. It's the Legal Paige community on Facebook, if any of you are interested, if you're not a part of the Facebook group. So the trend was really consistency. We didn't necessarily see a huge drop, which was great. And we didn't see like I'm not here to tell you, I took 6 weeks off of social media and made a bunch more money. That wasn't the case either. But what you want your business to do is just stay even keel. And that's what happened. And I feel really, really good about it because we had a plan in place. So you know how accountants oftentimes tell you, or bookkeepers of your business tell you, you need to keep like a 6-month reserve fund just in case something were to happen, the like what if scenarios were to occur. I would say you need to prep that for social media for your business. If you rely pretty heavily on social media for engagement and potential clients and customers coming your way, of course, you need to have an email list. You need to have, back-end systems in place and, SEO and a solid website as well. All of that is fine and dandy. But I'm talking here about a lot of us run our businesses on social media. That is just reality for many, many, many entrepreneurs. If that's the case, I want you to have a what if scenario if something were to happen in your personal life where you couldn't be the face of your brand. And that's like the biggest lesson I learned in being off of social media was we did batch record all these things. We did have people that could step up and quote unquote be me when I wasn't fully available to like do stories and like show my life every single day to our audience. I noticed as well that we continued to still get lots of speaking inquiries for online summits and conferences that were happening throughout 2021 and 2022 coming up. So it was still like TLP was running like a machine, like it was supposed to run. And so that really helped me feel at ease with where I was at. Of course, I mentally just was pretty drained. I couldn't really think about anything other than like trying to grow a super healthy baby. And the baby is very healthy right now, which is wonderful. But that first, I just felt like the first trimester could have been so much different if I also had this massive added pressure of running my business and being the face of my brand. So I could take a step back from, I didn't do a lot of client work during that time. I didn't take on any new clients with my law firm, Griffith Law. I also, told a lot of my clients as well, like, hey, things may be getting back to you a little bit later. I was just very honest and forthright with where I was feeling that first trimester with the fatigue. And I also knew, so you guys, I always try to put what the businesses I run in like different bubbles and how I run them. So TLP is basically my full-time job. I work a decent 40 hours a week, sometimes more, with the legal page. And then I do have a law firm as well that I kind of work part-time with. I don't take on too many clients with that. I'm a solo practitioner as a lawyer, and I knew that a lot of those clients with Griffith Law at that point in time, like basically February through March of 2021, they were my number one priority because they were my clients. They had signed retainer agreements with me. I needed to be there for them. And so TLP needed to be taken over by my team because I could really only focus on about 5, 10, 15 hours of work per week at that time. And so I kind of made the transition as smoothly as possible to only focusing on my clients that were super necessary, not taking on new clients, and then also having a social media team in place that could basically pick up the slack for me not being super visible on social media. My outlook as a whole, though, you guys, has changed now that I've had those 6 weeks off. Those fears that I had from the beginning of like, what's going to happen? Am I still the face of my brand? That's the biggest lesson I learned. Was I've had a couple friends in the industry tell me, I chose a business name that doesn't have my name in it. I intentionally made a business where I can take a step back at any time and I could hire people to do my social media and, my customer service inbox at any time so that I'm not the one that has to be present all the time. And it's been interesting because I can't change my business name. The legal page is pretty well known at this point. And I love TLP. Like it is me. And I chose to have myself be kind of forefront of the business. My face is all over it. You guys, I'm the lawyer of the legal page. Like I do have a very personal brand. And that's something I wanted to create. But I've learned a lot. I've read a lot of business books. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I've talked to a lot of people in the industry. And it is taxing on an entrepreneur when you are the face of the brand. And these 6 weeks off during February and March really helped me kind of be enlightened to the fact that I don't necessarily have to be the face of the brand all the time. I think you need to realize, and if I could give you any suggestion at the end of this podcast, it's that you can take a step back and do kind of the bare minimum and you will be just fine. Your business isn't going to go anywhere. As long as you're not in the hustle stage where you're trying to like get a bunch of clients and set up workflows and systems, like all of that needs to be in place before like you take time off. And that's reality for anyone, right? Like if you're in W-2 world and you're working for a company, that's why they have kind of, a 6-month trial period before you can start taking PTO. That's why when you work for a business or you start a business, you're in the hustle stage. You got to kind of earn the right to take some time off. And we all create business days where we don't want to be working all the time. That's hopefully the goal of every entrepreneur out there. It's my goal. And I just really realized, we can run TLP with minimal snippets of Paige in there. I think having, good photos of you, having reels batched where it looks like you're kind of active still on social media, writing out captions in advance, making sure that someone's checking DMs and they aren't just lingering for weeks on end, making sure that you're still saying hello to your audience at least a few times a week is important, but you don't have to be constantly on Instagram stories and recording and telling them what you're eating for breakfast and then telling them you're on your walk with your dog and then telling them you're going to run errands and then you're home and then you're trying to do nap time and then you're trying to, you don't have to do that. We're all not influencers. You run a personal brand, but your personal brand can also have ebbs and flows of you being, entirely visible in the face of your brand online. And that is my biggest takeaway. I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's right. I don't have to be available. I think this have to versus need to is something that I learned. I felt that my mindset was I have to be available. I've been available basically 24/7 for the past 3 or 4 years as TLP has grown. And this was just this aha moment of, but do I really need to? No. TLP can still run without me. I would be interested to see 6 weeks, I kind of got back online, and slowly but surely we made kind of not like a hard and fast transition of like, boom, now Paige is online all the time. I just like sort of, did a couple stories a week, and then we progressively kind of moved into, okay, Paige is going to like go back to taking over Instagram and the Facebook group as a whole. But I would be interested to see what happened if I were to do this for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months. Probably not a good idea. I would say chunks of time in, I would say if you just do different periods of time throughout your business year, that will work well for you. So if you want to take a vacation for 2, 3, 4 weeks, you can do it. Just prepare in advance to be off of social media and what that's going to look like. Off as in you're not just like ghosting people and you're totally done, because the algorithm's not going to like you. We all, don't like the algorithm. We don't know what the algorithm wants from us, but we do know that Instagram wants us to be online. So just making sure people can have access to your account and can technically be you, quote unquote, is important during those periods of time where you are taking rest from social media and technically being off yourself. And then I also think that, your audience still needs to see you. You need to be aware that with the ebbs and flows of you being on and off social media, if that's what you choose to do, we just made it a point. Okay, so, Paige was kind of off in February and March. We made sure that our, big mid-year sale would have been at a good period of time in the year plan. We usually do it kind of sometime in Q2. So April, May, and June. We decided to push it to the end of May and not go into summer, and I'll tell you why in a second. But because I was off for about 6 weeks, I wanted to, pre-launch and revamp all of my stuff with TLP, be more active on social media, get people talking about contracts and business and CEO stuff again. And, me kind of lighting the fire under them, and then like, boom, a big sale comes. So we made that decision after the fact that I, couldn't be on social media. We were like, all right, we need to like change our like yearly calendar up a little bit, which is totally fine, you guys. You are the master of your own business. You can change up the calendar. I give you permission. And then we also, learned a lot from this process too. I like to take a bit of time off in the summer. It's a beautiful time in Montana. I know that this is kind of Marco and I's last summer with just us. Of course, we're going to start a family, and I wanted to make it a priority. I like July to be very much not 100% in my business. I like to have lots of extra time. We are, moving to a 4-day work week. If you've seen on social media, I've talked a lot about that, which I will do a whole podcast on it, I promise. But with that, we have learned, okay, Paige can take off time from social media, and the team kind of just picks it up for me. So now we're like, oh, remember what we did in February and March? Let's kind of use all of that education and things that we've learned and skills towards Paige being a little bit more off of social media in July as well. I just like to kind of post what I'm doing during the summer and really kind of the rest periods of being a CEO, and that it's okay to take vacation. And that's, a whole part and beauty of being your own boss. And I want people to know that that's totally possible for them as well. You just have to have plans in place. And, all of those fears that I had of being off of social media just honestly weren't true. And so I hope you take that away as well. If you're worried and fearful of those things about growth and not scaling well and your business is going to go kaput, basically all of, the worst fears we could ever have, they really don't happen. I promise you, they do not happen. Not only have my team and I learned so much, but personally as a leader, I've learned to let go of control. And for so many years, I thought I'm the face of my brand. I'm Paige of the legal Paige. I have to be here or the business isn't going to XYZ, insert, whatever fear and, negative mindset I may have about the business. I mean, my top tip for you, if you're scared to let go of control, is you just have to do it. You have to try it so that you know what's going to happen, right? You can't just never take the leap and the jump. You have to do that. And then I would say, learn from the process and try to do better next time. So I'm probably going to take off time again pretty heavily with maternity leave. I run my own business. I don't have, a 12-week maternity leave where my employer's paying me. If you're from Europe, you're probably 12 weeks. That's it. Yes. I have my own thoughts. We all hate what is going on in the US. Maternity leave isn't even mandated with private companies. It's just ridiculous, let me tell you. And I want to make it a priority that I do take at least a month off. We have a weird period of time at the end of the year due to a sale that we have at the end of every year. And so I'm going to try to prep everything as much as possible. I'm due in October. So I'm going to prep everything in September and then half of October as much as possible so that I can take a solid, 4 to 6 weeks off. And then I will slowly transition back in. I can't take basically 3 months off. It's just not possible with the business that I run. But, my husband and I have, childcare plans in place. He is going to be home with the kid. My parents are in town and they are going to be very helpful with the kid during that period of time as I kind of transition back. But what we learned with this 6 weeks off of social media at the beginning of my pregnancy, all of that is going to shift very well over to maternity leave when the kid actually arrives. So anything I would do really differently? Not necessarily. I would say probably just make sure that I pre-record some videos potentially where it looks like I am actually filming my Instagram stories. And we had a lot of static stories during those 6 weeks that Morgan and Anna took over my social media, where it was just a picture of me with static text. We will continue to do that, but I think we could mix in a lot of, pre-recorded videos of me talking about the podcast that's going to launch, talking about XYZ coming up with TLP. And so I definitely want to plan that out for kind of September, beginning of October. And then I also just probably want to have a story plan in place for, Anna primarily does our reels and our Instagram posts, and then Morgan takes over stories. We kind of it was a free for all with stories, and Morgan did a phenomenal job. But I think now she really enjoys kind of being prepped and ready to go kind of the week prior versus kind of doing it day of. And so that's just something we would do differently too. We have learned with TLP that getting things done in advance is very helpful, and it reduces stress and it relieves anxiety for everyone in the business. So those are just very minor things I would do differently. And all in all, you guys, if you are the face of your brand, if your business is named based off of you, if you are constantly on social media, my biggest piece of advice for you is it's 100% okay to take a step back, to not be ever present on social media, and that your business will continue to run. I promise. And I think people will understand. That is also a really big lesson that I learned. I was able to come back on, and I'm just honest and forthright with everyone. I was gone. I was in my first trimester, hey, everyone, I'm pregnant. And this is why I haven't been totally visible. If you are actively planning it and it wasn't mine just kind of came out of nowhere situation, I didn't really tell people. And I, of course, didn't want to tell people until I knew the pregnancy was fully viable. If you're planning it, you can absolutely prep people for you being off of social media. I actually saw, if you don't follow already, go follow Tyler McCall. He is kind of doing a 3-month, whole summer off of social media, and his team is taking over. And he prepped his audience for it in advance. He's like, this is what's happening. I can't wait to tell you guys how it goes. but this is really important to me and I kind of need to take, my own little sabbatical. So he prepped his audience for being away. I think you could do it either way. Of course, it's always good to give people, if you do have a very active audience on social media and people kind of rely on seeing you every day, or your business relies on that, it would probably be smart to prep people in advance. But I think you could also just offer an explanation after the fact too. If you just need to take a week or two and you've got some personal stuff going on and you just need to step away, do it. 100%. Don't be worried. Don't be fearful. Don't be scared. Just do it. You are a person. You are a human. We all have things that go on in our lives, and social media is not your priority. It does not need to be the be all end all of your success. So you're fine to get off social media. You're fine to move on in your personal life. And then when you jump back on, I just always tell people why I was gone or what happened. And now I'm back and boom, then you just continuing on. I think that's 100% okay to do. That is all that I have for this episode, you guys. I hope it was enlightening and I hope you learned a few things about, why I was out for 6 weeks, what it looked like, what we learned through that process. I'll make sure to do a follow-up episode on this kind of after this summer with, me kind of being on and off of social media. And we do kind of more personal posts in the summer versus heavy contract business tip posts and legal posts, of course. And then I, of course, will maybe do a double follow-up after my maternity leave and kind of let you guys know what that looks like. So thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. And I'll be here again, same time, same place next week. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.